Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. Today's podcast is on resolve and what it actually means to us, how we practice it, the value of it, and what happens when we're not there. And welcome, Nick. So we just spent the last 10 minutes trying to get ourselves into resolve to talk about this. So we get super clear and deliver this message. Resolve's a funny thing. You know, it's to me, it like alignment and resolve just, they're almost the same thing, but it's like when I think about being in full resolve, I really feel that alignment transfer into my body, and I feel myself lock in physically and mentally in a way that matches the alignment. I don't know if that's like it's hard to describe because it's such an internal feeling, but I can be in alignment and be really flowing. But when I get really in resolve, it's like locking in, and there's this feeling of creation that happens when I'm there, and transference, that piece of the energy I'm carrying, the clarity I'm carrying, the people around me have access to it, and they can simulate it, recreate it in their own fields just simply by being in the presence of our fields when we're holding it. And it can be something that we offer back. And so we'll talk a bit about resolve, how we define it and what that really means. But welcome, Nick. How you doing, man?
Good morning. How are you? Things are great.
Doing good.
I'm very resolved about being resolved.
Yeah. And so yeah, let's talk a little bit about what we mean by that. And so when we're resolved, we're really clear on something. We're not in confusion. We're not in what I will call the healing trough. We're not in the trauma of it. We're very clear about who we are in it, what our definition is of it, the relevance of it to us. And it's just a very clean interface. And so why don't I talk about what I call the healing trough, and that journey, what I call really our signature that we're carrying energetically. And so we all have experiences that create some sort of a traumatic response. Some are intense traumas, some are mild. It could be if you're an empathic kid or sensitive and somebody yells at you, right? And that creates a signature. It creates some sort of a mark in your field. Sometimes we have really intense traumas where we witness something or experiencing something, and that creates a really strong mark in our field. And that trauma, a lot of people, we spend a lot of time living in that when we get that mark. And it's something that we're not alone in. There's collective traumas that many people experience that become collective wounds. And that collective wound, I've often talked about when we go to heal our collective wound, and we're tapped into the collective wound because we're referencing out into it. We're identifying with other people who've had the same experiences. We co-commiserate, we support each other in that. And it creates like we bring our lifeboats together, lash them together, and create an island that is a collective wound where we're tied into each other, and it becomes very stabilized. And so when we go to heal ourselves and we're tapped into the collective wound, it's like we're trying to move the whole collective wound. And it's near impossible because most of the people in the collective wound are not in a place where they want to heal it. They're in a place where it's part of their identity, part of how they know themselves, part of how they connect with others. And so it's near impossible for us to heal these things that when we're so tied into the collective wound. And so part of aligned living is we unhook from the collective wound and find our own signature of it. And then it's hard to believe how small our part is in it. Once we've gone sovereign, once we've dropped into ourselves and we start working with that. And so that's one element of the journey that we work with. Was there something you wanted to add to that too before we get into the...
It does seem very important to really underscore the idea of that collective wound when you're in the conversations and it gets normalized, right? And so
then you're actually in resolve that there's something very wrong and that we're stuck in it.
Yes, right. Right. And then the difference is that small little piece that is yours, that is really separate from that. And
Yeah.
that bigger thing is really just the proxy that's easier to deal with versus the one, we'll say smaller, also larger item, right? Because it's smaller than this bigger thing, but
Yeah.
it's bigger because you don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, that collective wound, once we've identified it, it's so much bigger than us because it's everybody's put together. And then we
Yeah,
go, shit, no wonder I can't keep this job, or no wonder this
that's
relationship keeps
right.
falling apart, or no wonder I struggle in this way. I see all these other people doing the same thing.
Yeah,
We have this stacked against us,
yeah. But
and
it's not
it's bigger
yours
than us.
to solve. It's
No, no,
you're adopting it like it's your problem because you'd
absolutely.
rather not address the problem.
Because you carry a signature in your field that allows you to resonate with it and match up with it. And
Yeah.
almost all the healing, that's really that we need to do is resolving our signature, not resolving the greater problem, not resolving it for all of humanity first, but starting with ourselves and our own little
Our
signature
piece.
of, and it's tiny in comparison to how it feels once we go into that sovereignty and go, oh, it's just this little, piece of code in my programming that hooks me into that. And the moment I hook into it, now I'm sourcing it outside of myself into me, and it feels like me, and I'm stuck. And, that sounds like it's simplified, but it's so literal. And the moment we disconnect from that, we have a different experience with our traumas. And so a little bit more on that healing piece. So that trauma is one of the things that's available to us. We can live in that, we can experience it. But generally what we do is we have the trauma, and, it may lay dormant for a long time. Some people may dive right into the healing of it, and once we start to go into the healing of it, we go into what I call the healing trough. And even if we try to let it be dormant, we're still in that healing trough, where we go into all the different feelings, the sometimes it's denying it ever happened. Sometimes it's, kind of like the death, dealing with death. It's very similar to that, where we go into, it could be denial. It could be, completely going into depression. It could be going into all these struggles, and we dip down into that healing trough, and we work our way out of it. We clear a layer, and we clear a layer, and we clear a layer, and we keep going, oh, it feels like it's resolved. And then something else happens and it triggers it, that PTSD experience, where people walk into an experience where, like 4th of July with, veterans, for example,
Mm,
like it triggers something again, and they're starting to have that experience, and now more resolve needs, more resolving of it, more working through it. And at a certain point, we reach the next part of that healing trough, which is getting really clear with ourselves and being in a place where we have the ability to be in resolve around it. And, and this is part of clearing. We go, oh my God, I've worked through it, and now I'm holding myself in resolve. Something else can happen, and we can slide back into the healing trough. We can slide back into the original trauma, but we have the ability to be in resolve. And once we have that ability to be in resolve, and we're in our alignment, and we're not hooking into the collective wound anymore, the ability to stay there is so much more amplified and so much more important. Because what happens when we look at our own electromagnetic field, right? So much of this is about that science of REMF, our electromagnetic field, that is always interacting with everything around us. And when you interact with somebody who's in their trauma, you feel it. It puts a signature that's running into your field from their field. When they're in the healing trough, wherever they are in that's what you're experiencing of them, and it affects everybody around us. And when we're
yeah.
in resolve, when we've worked through it, and we have the ability now to be in resolve, again, it's not the only place we can be. We can be, once we have that arc, we have the whole thing available, the whole signature. But if we
Yeah.
can stay in resolve and hold the whole signature in our field, because there's the marker for the trauma, there's all the markers along the way of our healing journey, and then there's the resolve. And when we hold ourselves in resolve, and that becomes the energy field that we're broadcasting, anybody that we interact with as healers, as, coaches, as helping people work through this on themselves, it becomes what's available for us to give back. And when we do that now, and do it from a place of resolve, rather than doing it from a place of being in the healing trough, or doing it from a place of being, in the trauma, it fast tracks it for people. And so all the things we've been through, that our souls signed up for, to go through these traumatic experiences that we spend our life working through, and have the opportunity to be in resolve with, and offer that back, as a gift back to humanity, as a service back to humanity. Being in resolve is absolutely imperative, because we can't do it from anywhere else in the healing trough. Otherwise, we're contributing to that level of the stuckness. Either we're contributing to the collective wound because we're in the trauma, or we're contributing to anywhere along that healing process. And so once we have resolve available to us, our ability to stay in it and to own it, and when we fall off of it, to reclaim it again very quickly, is absolutely huge in how we affect others and help them through this process. And ultimately, it's about us too, because if we're holding ourselves in resolve, now we're not being dogged by those same patterns. We're not running the same programs anymore. And we're creating something different for our own lives. And, that has just become so clear to me at another level recently of the responsibility for that, carrying that signature of resolve. And, when we focus on that service, it's pretty amazing what it does for us. Because when we're just going, oh, I need to hold myself in resolve, I need to show up in this way, we can do it that way. But when we go, I actually have a responsibility to the people around me and the people I serve to hold myself in resolve. And whenever I'm not doing that, I'm actually pulling them down. To me, it's a whole nother level of availability, because when our service is beyond us, we just have so much more clarity and energy to do it. If we're stuck on ourselves and we're just going, oh God, I got to hold myself in here, not get sucked into the trough, not get sucked into the trauma. We become very self-conscious. And when we become very self-conscious, we become, jammed up in it. And so when we're in
Distracted.
service, we're not self-conscious at all.
Yeah. 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 So there seems to be a big awareness piece to this all, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And tracking with that awareness throughout the process you were describing. But it seems even more important, that initial awareness of the unresolved.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, that's just running in the program too, and we think everything's fine, but we keep and we can always tell by our patterns what are we recreating? What keeps showing up in our life that we're not intending to show up in our life? And then we go, God, I can't believe I just entered another relationship like this, or I can't believe I have another boss like this, or I can't believe I'm dealing with another client like this, or I can't believe that this person's angry at me again for that. Like, what keeps happening? And go, oh well, obviously, if it's a repetitive pattern and we don't like it, there's something in our signature that's unresolved, and we're not holding ourselves in the resolve that we've already established for ourselves. Because being able to move into resolve and then getting lured and seduced back into the healing trough, or seduced back into the trauma because that's how other people want to connect with us, very available too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a certain comfort in that floundering around that we get used to sometimes.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
speaking for
we get to be
myself.
part of it. That's what humanity does. And so we get to be part of it. And when we hold ourselves in resolve, all of a sudden we've stepped out of line.
Yes.
We've exposed ourselves and said, I'm not doing that anymore, because
That's right.
the rest of society is not holding themselves in resolve. It's because of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it's a, like, once you start to do it, like whatever you're not doing, and again, like I always talk about this is what aligned living is, and it's becoming so more and more clear lately, is that when we're in alignment, like it's not abandoning ourselves, it's about not allowing ourselves to move into any sort of disassociation or any of the other places into the healing arc, that the healing trough, or into the trauma, but staying in resolve. And whenever we're in those other places, it starts to feel gross. It just feels like, oh my God, why am I doing this to myself? And why am I doing this to other people? Why am I helping other people stay there, making this gross place comfortable for them, making it feel like home? Like, God. But until we let it feel gross, it feels great in an awful way. It feels like,
Yes.
like I know where I am.
In a non-productive, seemingly cathartic way.
Yeah, we're it's funny, and it asks so much of us, like of our exertion of energy and energy drainage, but it feels like it's not asking anything of us, because it's just
Yeah, that's right.
zapping our batteries. It's just draining us out. And we go, I'm just kind of relaxing, just, having a conversation with my friends, have a glass of wine. We'll talk about all the shit. Feels so nice.
Yeah. 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 Well, that's true. Yes, that is basically what happens. And then
It's exactly what happens, right?
and then you feel heard, and then you have folks who are having the same experiences. That feels good on a certain level.
I know, right?
So it's so
Right?
good.
My
Right.
gosh.
Wait a minute.
You too?
What are you doing?
You too? My God.
What are you doing right now?
Right?
You understand me. I'm so glad we're talking about
Oh my
this.
God, Nick. I hear you. Oh my God.
You do.
It's hard. It's hard, isn't it?
So hard.
We've been through so much, man.
This is terrible.
We've been through so much, Being born sensitive like this, God, especially as a man,
Being
it's so
born. You could have
hard,
stopped at
Nick.
being born.
Oh my God, did I tell you about my birth? Holy shit. And then not even, you know what happened while I was in utero? Oh my God. Like before I was born. And then, you know what? Actually, the life
That's where it
before this
started.
one, holy shit. Like,
That's where it started.
and the one before that.
But this one will be better if we could ever get
What
to
were
the
we
point.
talking about?
Have we resolved that?
I feel you, man. I feel you.
Yeah. Yeah. And there we go. And there we go.
Oh God. Maybe we should just take a nap. Let's cut the recording.
And that is what the empath merry-go-round looks like.
And we've been there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then it feels gross. And then we go, God, it's just not interesting. It's not interesting.
Yes.
It was the most fascinating thing in the world. And now it's not interesting. Now it feels gross. And when it happens, I'm like, I'm out. Like, I'm not playing. And I won't be invited because if I'm holding myself in a place of resolve and people are trying to do that, they feel gross. And then it can often turn into projection of like, well, you think you're better? You don't think but we just don't need to play. And those are all hooks, right? Bait to draw us back in. And it's just the crabs in the bucket thing. You put one crab in a bucket, it crawls right out. You put two in, they can't get out because they just pull each other back down. And so, when we're in alignment, we can all crawl out. But when we're not, we just pull each other back into the collective wounds.
Yeah. And help each other out.
And really what we're doing is we're making an awful place comfortable, and we're making suffering sustainable. And I mean, I talk about this all the time, and we're seeing this on the planet. When suffering goes from sustainable to unsustainable, things start to happen, change happens. And that's what we're experiencing right now. And there's something fantastic about that. To me, there's nothing worse than sustainable suffering. And, that's what most of our policies do, is create sustainable suffering. We're not really going to make it better, but we're going to help it just keep limping along.
Yeah.
And it's better breaking than it is sustaining.
What did you say? You said something like a comfortable place for suffering. Did you say that?
Maybe. I
think
don't
so.
know.
I think so. I mean, that described, I think those were your words. That described it pretty
your
well.
words, man.
Maybe a variation of your statement, but it was some amount of comfortable for suffering, which was a really lovely summary of all this, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And so what is resolve again then? It's going to that place where we go, God, I've been working at this and I have all that available. And, it's when we get that clear on our story, when we get that clear on who we are, and go, I can actually talk about the healing trough. Now I can talk about the trauma, and I don't get drawn into it. Like and that is, how do I know that I have resolve available? Is that it doesn't feel heavy to talk about.
Yeah, those signals of, am I resolved versus do I still get triggered?
Yeah.
Do I still feel gross?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting too. Then, life gives us new traumas, and what do we do with them? I think I may have talked about this a few years back. My daughter Ava and I were looking at colleges and gone to Hawaii for a week to go look at the university there in Oahu. And then we spent about 3 hours on campus and a week exploring, playing on the island. But don't tell anybody. It was such a fun trip. But, while we were there, we actually witnessed a suicide, and it was so intense. And I think it was the second day we were there. And, the traumatic experience of it, and I'm not going to go into the details of it because I don't think that serves anybody, but witnessing it myself, there was horrific things that I saw, heard, all of that. And like intentionally held myself present with it, because I knew, I'm like, this can really put a mark, right? It can really, there's a signature that just got put into my field by witnessing this. And so what do we need to do, my daughter and I, in order to stay present with it and not just go, oh, let's distract ourselves, let's disengage, but to really stay present with it and let my nervous system process, and let my daughter's nervous system process what we experienced. And, I intentionally kept bringing it present for us so that we wouldn't just bury it, so it wouldn't just disappear into our unconscious and reemerge in fear and anxiety and all those other things. And it was really a powerful experience to go, okay, this happens so suddenly and unexpectedly. So bam, hits me with and my daughter with this signature. What do we do with it? And the idea of intentionally staying present with it, letting it resolve, it's all nervous system work. And you
Mm.
can look at it like one of the things I've gotten really into is doing ice baths, which I can't wait for Nick to get started with this. He's going to love it. No wetsuits allowed, right? But the idea of like when we get into an ice bath, that it shocks our nervous system. And it's funny. First thing that my body wants to do when I get into an ice bath is disassociate, to like pop out and go, all right, my body's having this experience. I'm going to go over here while that's happening. But if we do ice baths in that way, where we're just getting into the shocking environment and then disassociating, waiting 3 minutes while our body freaks out and then getting back out again, really, what are we training? We're training our ability to disassociate. We're training our ability to pop out and go somewhere else. And to me, like if we're doing ice baths and we're not making the goal to stay locked in on ourselves, to stay present and to stay in our body when that's happening, we're actually training ourselves the opposite. We're training disassociation from intense experiences.
Yeah.
And so like so many of these tools, if they're not used with the right intention, with the right internal space where you're actually using it to learn to stabilize yourself, not abandon yourself and stay present, you're just getting really good at abandoning yourself and going, oh, I'm pretty good at ice baths now. I just kind of pop out of my body and let my body adjust, and then I come back in once my body's adjusted. That's not what we're doing. We're staying present. We're staying locked in. Otherwise, we're training disassociation again, and getting good at it.
And that's a rinse and repeat pattern.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we never move beyond it.
No, we just get better at it and go, oh my God, I've developed this coping mechanism.
Right.
Pop out of my body. My body goes through its thing. I don't have the experience of it. Come back into my body. Now I've regulated. Like that's not what happened. You disassociated and you became deregulated and you're not present. And the whole idea of this is to learn to be present when our nervous system is firing, and so that our nervous system can relax and trust what's happening because we're there with it.
Yeah.
And this is no different. And the our lives, the world constantly give us opportunities to disassociate, to abandon ourselves, and to move out of resolve. And when you're disassociated, you're not in resolve. You are in the trauma, or you're in the part of the healing trough of disassociation. I'm separate from my body, or I'm separate from this experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, like it all combines, but I think breath work is fantastic with this too, because it forces you to stay present and it forces you to deal with whatever's coming up. And I know that feeling from deep breath work where you're really going for it. And then like a trauma may show up, and that feeling of like, I got to get out of here. But can you keep breathing at that same level?
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing with breath work because you're really forcing your breathing. And that's why having a practitioner help you is so important, because usually what happens is as the trauma is starting to appear, people slow their breathing down so that the trauma kind of, goes back inside again, as opposed to just keep going after it and just letting it come through and knowing you're going to be okay, even though your nervous system is telling you you're not.
Yeah.
And when you learn to do that, your nervous system learns that it's going to be okay, and you stop disassociating. You stop, you can keep breathing through it and let it go. Like, I know what this is. I know the rules here. I know how this is going to play out. Everything's fine. And nervous system regulation is absolutely huge and such an important part of this. And when we can do it from alignment, we have a place to be while we're doing it.
Yeah. And it's a skill, right? You do it once, you could do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you get that down, and because your nervous system's going to trust you, and you're going to trust your nervous system.
That's right.
And you're building a relationship with yourself is really what we're doing.
That's right. Yeah. And you're trusting yourself and your own ability to move through those obstacles and that whatever it is that's showing up for you, which means the next thing that comes through, because there will be a next thing.
Yeah.
Right. Just how it works.
And then we can stay in resolve it and go, I'm okay. I'm fine.
There's
right. Nothing here for me to be afraid of.
That's right. Versus disassociation or retreat or just being paralyzed emotionally, physically, action wise, whatever it may be. Yeah.
This is our fight or flight mechanism, right?
That's right.
And when we can be present in it instead of it activating, it changes everything. Because fight or flight is like press play on tape, run, like do the thing that you used to do, like project, whatever it is. and we don't even know when we're going into it. But once we train ourselves to know if we're in resolve, if we're in our alignment and we're locked in, and it's a very different feeling when we're not, then we do know when we moved.
Yeah.
And when it feels gross and go, God, like I just can't do that anymore. It's not who I am. I hold myself to a higher standard for me and for everybody that I serve, which is what my energy constantly does.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of training for life shit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Versus, oh, life has
Absolutely.
shit.
Yeah.
Y- y-
And here's the good part. Like, it's all about internal expansiveness and freedom. And so we go like, oh, we're
yeah.
talking about that, the point of that threshold, but let's talk about what's above that threshold. Freedom.
Yeah.
I can walk into any situation and feel comfortable. I can feel relaxed, even in stressful situations. I can trust. I have this space inside myself where something negative can be going on and I can still be having a good time while there's enough room inside me where I can have two things going on at once and having enough bandwidth that it doesn't, I don't shrink my awareness down to the what's wrong thing. And when we do that, we're always making our decisions from how do I stop this discomfort? And it's never about what we want in our life. It's never about what we really want to create. It's what we're trying to stop from happening. And that creates, it doesn't create our dreams. It doesn't fulfill our goals. It just is
Quite the
always this,
opposite.
investment in sustaining our suffering and going, oh, how do I make this okay? And how do I keep battling with what's wrong rather than creating something that's not?
Yeah. It's I forget which Rocky it was, but the one where Mr. T is in there and he's just like, pain. It's just like, it's just more time with Mr. T in the ring with pain. Shit. Or he can just not do that.
Resolve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's every Rocky movie is that, right? He's against the ropes, in disassociation, just getting pummeled, and then all of a sudden he finds his internal resolve, and he comes back and he takes charge.
Right.
Like that is the scenes every time.
Every time.
Like disassociation, abandoning self, getting your ass kicked. Wait a minute, I actually have another aspect of myself I can show up in.
Right.
Makes a great movie.
It's a wonderful movie. Even if they get worse as the series is going on, they're still.
Think about how boring it'd be if Rocky just held resolve and he just went in. He goes, "I know I've done this like 17 times now. Right? I know what's going to happen. I don't need to go stand against the ropes and disassociate from myself. I can hold the resolve that I can handle this and go for it." Like it would be a really bad movie, but
very short and not worth watching. Yeah, very boring.
And so unless you want your life to be a story that you get to tell that it's a great story, like what's the goal?
Yeah.
Awesome, Nick. Interesting. Yeah, so it's funny as we're talking about here. I want to really end this on that strong note of why we're talking about this, because that interface is what we talked about most of today. But the idea of moving above that threshold of that interface, and when we're in resolve and we have that internal expansiveness, and we get to feel, what do I want? How do I want to show up? What do I want to create? What's right for me? What's my next right action? Rather than being in the struggle, like life is completely different. When we're below that threshold and we're in the disassociation, when we're in the non-resolve, when we're in the healing trough or the trauma, everything's about that. And it's messy and it's hard and it's not what we want, but it's the life we've had to live through in order to get here. The resolve is the payoff. It is the reward for all the hard work done. And it is the service we get to offer back to humanity through our own energy, through our own clarity, through our own alignment. And that piece is absolutely huge. And so, yes, we talked a lot about that threshold and what happens below it today, but this is all about the freedom that happens on the other side of that. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thanks so much for listening, and have a great week. And as always, we appreciate you. Have a great one. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast. And if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.